Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome back to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla, Evan Hauger is joining us today, and then special guest back, Sean Robinson, Dr. Sean Robinson. It's good to have you, man. Second round.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, good.
First time was fun. Glad to be here again.
Yes, indeed. So what we want to do is do a special episode here, really discussing baseball. You know, we're in the spring part of the season. Things are kind of really, probably wrapping up for some of the youth and high school stuff. We're getting ready for like some more competitive summer league things. And then, of course, the major league season is just kind of in the early phases. So as a team physician for the Athletics, no association to a city. I think that's where we're at, right? It's not the Oakland days.
Yeah. Can't call them Oakland. You can't call them Sacramento.
Sacramento.
They're the Athletics.
They're just the Athletics.
They're the Athletics right now.
But they got a bridge on one side and a Las Vegas thing on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, they do.
Uh-huh. Yeah. They're repping Sac, which is nice to see.
I mean, it's fantastic. I think it's great. It's so exciting to have them.
Oh yeah.
I'm pumped that you're on the physician team, on the medical team. How's it been for you?
I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I've worked through a few professional teams, and I got to say, not to like put down any other teams or whatever else, but working with A's has been great. They have a great staff. Their training staff's amazing. Their head trainer Brian, Schulman he's an easy guy to work with. He's on top of everything. From what I've noticed in other organizations, you don't have that head team physician or head team trainer who's as on top of things as Brian is.
Nice.
So it's made my life a lot easier having him, and then obviously just a lot of fun.
Isn't that amazing? Like, I think that's one of the most amazing things in pro sports that there is sometimes a lack of like that overall like accountability or like a leader of the performance or medical team. Because usually it's not the physician, isn't usually like the leader of the team. There's somebody like that's there with the team full time, and you guys usually come in as coverage opportunities, or if there's a special case that's needed, they bring you in, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're very much in the background. Right, and the head team physician's Mike Freehill, and I mean, he's been awesome to work with too. He's leading all of us, and also teaching us a lot as well. What goes into it, but we're very much in the background. I mean, Brian handles and his team handle virtually everything, and then we just kind of come in to help when they need us. Look at specific things,
which makes perfect sense, right? You don't want the doctor shouldn't be involved in all the basic everyday decisions unless needed, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Well, and also, the relationships is really important, right? And so they've known Brian forever. Yeah, the players that is, right? And so there's a comfort. I mean, baseball in general is a little cultish, as we all know, right? I mean, it's definitely you have to work within certain groups of people to garner trust.
100%.
And so
I think all pro sports.
I mean, all pro sports. Yeah, all pro sports.
But logistically, like the doctor, you have your own practice, so you can stay here.
Yeah.
Brian, his job is with the A's, so his job is to oversee the whole thing and travel with the team. He's in all the same hotels, all the same places as they are, and you get to still run your own practice here. So there's like a separation there, kind of.
There is, and they're very accommodating. Right. That's the other nice
Except
part
for
of
your
that.
Seats.
It's hot up there, man. It's hot. No, but they're super accommodating. For me and Hunter and Hunter Green, obviously, they work well in our schedule. And again, I haven't not had that same experience working with other teams in the past. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Makes it way more enjoyable.
That's really cool.
Awesome. Good to hear. I'm glad to hear that they got a good unit and it's working well. I think it's important. I think that's one of the coolest things. Like, and we try to do this in the private sector, is like develop that team concept around like patient care. And I think in pro sports it can be done really, really well. And unfortunately, there's times where I don't think it's done as well. But it's amazing when it's done well. Like the impact where you have obviously a great trainer to kind of lead the organization that way. Then you get some PTs on staff for supporting chiro, massage, of course the medical team, both surgical and non-surgical, and then bringing them all together is when the time's right, really be quarterbacking that driving the patient care, driving the player care in that environment. It's special when it works well.
Yeah, because there's a tendency for it to get really siloed. And in my communication with organizations about players that we do every off season, and you're right, like a fair amount of them get quite siloed. And you might have a conversation with somebody in one department, and that information doesn't spread. It's
not relayed.
Yeah. So that's unique. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a great group.
But I've always felt, and that's what we hope to do as an organization, is be able to like provide like that integrity, like bringing that team together to the general population. And I feel like that's kind of where our healthcare system like breaks down. They're there is a way to do it, and it sometimes is a little more challenging, but not if you have the right people. And
Right.
this is what I value so much about working with you, working with Hunter, of course, in a similar fashion. It's like when we have a patient that's in need or has a situation or we need to handle it, we can tighten that up really quickly.
Yeah.
And get fast turnaround where, if we see something like, hey, you should have Sean take a look at this, or, hey, this doesn't, maybe it's it was non-operative. Someone was hoping it would be non-operative. We get to evaluate them like, this doesn't seem great, or it's not responding as well as we'd hoped. Right. Be like, let's get you in right away. Let's get the image done. Let's get you to see the doc and let them make a call on this and like what your next step should be. I think it's just an amazing experience for the patient to like get that loop tightened.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of private practice,
Yeah.
right? Because like myself and Hunter, we get to dictate our practice. We get to dictate who comes in when. The problem with these big systems is they're withheld by administration, right? And then obviously having availability to people. You go to a bigger system like Davis or Sutter. I mean, they have zero control about who's coming in when.
Yes.
Right. So that's the beauty of what Hunter and I have, and then obviously the relationship with you guys goes clearly a long way for patient care. Ultimately, for patient care is really what's great.
Yeah.
And like multiple times I have called you with a patient in front of me and you've answered the phone and said, send them over to the office.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks ago, you did the same thing. You called me with the parents in the room with the kid.
Yep.
And so it can be so seamless
Yeah,
sometimes.
it works. It works both ways. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of private practice, right? I mean, it really optimizes the patient care, which when you're a high level athlete, I mean, obviously you need that.
Like that kid.
Yeah. And I mean, and right away you're like, mechanics problem, which, he's a God gifted kid, throws hard as can be.
There's a high school kid who throws mid-90s, so like a mid-90s arm in high school, who's never trained before.
Right or
really doesn't know
left-handed?
the first thing. What?
Right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Righty.
But still, I know you're downgrading him.
I'm not. I'm just. It's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, no,
but
it's
Throwing
still-
90 as a lefty, doesn't his stock go up?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Oh,
Yes. But like untapped.
Yeah.
Untapped. So it goes to Sean. He's got elbow pain. Elbow pain's been off and on for a while. Sean calls, sends him over. And it's not that bad. You saw his MRI.
No. And he threw that later that week and was thrown in the mid-90s. And he was doing all right.
Yeah. So when I saw him, like his like completely messy shoulder, completely messy T-spine, didn't have the mobility to get to the right positions.
No.
So we could change that. And then the biggest deal here is this mid-90s arm. We tested his cuff strength, and it was probably 10% of his body weight. And for somebody throwing that hard, it should be more like 17% of his body weight. So he really wasn't close. No. And so then like the mom and dad and it's like the aunt, or there were like 3 adults there with him, and they're all just like light bulbs going off. And so there's a short-term solution that helps him pitch a little bit better, and then there's a long-term solution from a strength standpoint. So.
Right, and he's going. So that kid's going down to Stanford. And
Yes.
the other cool thing about this, and just having the relationship with the A's, and obviously meeting people like you and everyone else, is I called Mike Freehill. Mike Freehill's the team physician at Stanford.
Yeah.
Right, and he's the team physician for the A's. So I call Mike. I'm like, Mike, heads up. Kids coming this summer. So again, we're closing the loop all the time. We're saying here's the issue. He's seeing top quality PT up here to get him going.
Yeah.
We're gonna get special MRI, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's really
I think on the elbow topic, I think let's like dive into that a little more. I think there's, we see a couple big trends in the baseball player. There's like the youth elbow, if you will. Like I think this maybe, younger pitcher, usually it's a pitcher, maybe it's a catcher as well, like somewhere between 12 to 14, 15 years old is kind of one kind of elbow that we tend to see a lot of.
Yep.
And then we see a slightly different elbow a little later on in their career. We could say in age, but it's more likely when they're starting to tap into the velocity numbers of like 85, 90 miles an hour. There seems to be a new diagnosis that tends to happen, right?
Yep.
So if we can talk maybe about like that differentiation, like if we're working with a young person, maybe they're in their late maturation stage, 12 to 14, 15, bones are still growing. How we see, either a lot of times we'll see a growth plate fracture there, or we'll see like a small avulsion, or a variety of things. But how do you, when you look at that and that patient comes in, what are some of the what's that process look like for you?
Yeah, so I really enjoy seeing the younger baseball players. More for earth throwers of any kind. The benefit of seeing them then is because the whole talk doesn't revolve around their elbow. It revolves around their mechanics, right? Because their problem is a mechanic problem. And people have mechanic problems all the way through college into the mind. I mean, they have mechanic issues for a long time. And so it's kind of a golden opportunity to talk to them about sport specialization, about throwing year round, about figuring out how to improve their mechanics, right? These are really important aspects because they virtually never need surgery.
Right.
Virtually never.
That
I mean,
age, yeah.
essentially, you want to say 100% of the time, you never can say 100%, but they basically never need surgery.
Yeah.
Right. But they need to really work on their mechanics.
Yeah.
They need time to marinate. You gotta like slow cook these young athletes a little bit, right?
You gotta slow cook them.
Yeah, so you nailed that though, right? When you say mechanics, you're really talking about like kinetic linking.
Yep.
So 86% of the velocity of a ball that comes out has nothing to do with the arm. It's the rest of the body.
Right.
So, the majority of the problems really, they're not arm problems. We're creating like an insane amount of power with the rest of the body, and the arm is a whip. I always think of Indiana Jones in those movies, he's like cracking the whip. Like the arm is a passive feature in this situation. Right. And so the force going through it is insane. Like every max effort throw, you've said this before, is enough to tear the UCL.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what stops it? Like efficient mechanics, efficient kinetic linking. The flexor mass is able to respond to some of that torque a little bit. The bone takes up a little bit of the stress too.
Yeah.
And then same, you go up to the shoulder, the same idea. The 250 pounds trying to pull the ball out of the socket every time they throw, max effort throw. So the body has to respond. 86% of that is the rest of the body.
Everything else.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about kids is, they have open physes, right? Open growth plates. And so their issue is more often growth plate related than anything because their UCL, their ligament's going to be stronger than their growth plate. Right, at that age, you're not going to tear the UCL. The UCL looks pristine every time.
The bone's the weak link.
The bone's the weak link,
Yeah.
and so the focus is not on UCL. It's honestly on rest for one. Let that thing calm down.
Yeah.
And then
And work on kinetic
change.
linking, work on strengthening everything around it.
Yeah, distribute the force away from the elbow.
Yeah,
I mean, we have a saying like it's never the elbow's fault. Right?
Yeah.
That's the last, like to Evan's point there, it's the last chain, the last part of the whip. So like how are you engaging with the ground? How's your hip rotation? How are you moving through the trunk? How's your arm strength? Like you were talking about that guy you were just talking
Just like
about.
with the Stanford kid, it's like the problem was not his elbow. We found all these other problems in the kinetic chain, and there's things he can do and he's going to be able to develop over the next couple of years. It should make a big difference for him.
right. Yeah.
And there are important things like they're actually, if it's a pre-pain situation, there are things to do to like prevent yourself from having these problems in this transitional phase. Like this, as you're usually this happens with kids that are like they're growing, like they grow 3 to 6 inches that year. So now they have all this length. They're throwing 10 to 15 miles per hour harder than they did before.
Yep.
And then they get into like March and April and they throw in a couple games, couple bullpens, and then all of a sudden, boom, like my elbow starts,
Right.
Seems to be the common story for me.
Yeah, very much.
And so it's like, all right, obviously we're dealing with some skeletal immaturity stuff that makes you vulnerable. But if you make sure that like the hips are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that you're getting power through the trunk, that your thoracic spine rotates, that your shoulder is strong enough, which is a big issue.
Huge.
Not from a velocity standpoint, in my opinion, but like just it's weaker than it needs to be because you haven't strength trained, especially with this new body.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of dissipating the force once you let go of the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
And back here, when your arm's in layback, it's a huge part of springing everything forward again too.
Yeah. And that's the other issue, just touch on, they grow quickly.
Yeah.
And so the bone grows quickly, but the ligaments can't keep up with that, nor can the tendons or the muscles. Like they don't know how to process that new length. And so that's the big issue. Everyone's so focused on the ligament. I'm like, don't worry about the
They're
ligament.
scared to death.
Don't
That's-
worry about the ligament right now. The ligament's okay. Your ligament's still pristine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Vast majority of the time.
And still
13 to
fairly
15.
elastic usually at that age.
Yeah.
At that age group, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is sometimes the problem. They're throwing so hard that thing is actually a little bit loose, and they're getting like compression and other kinds of things that cause pain.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, to all of your point, like the velocity has exceeded what their body can handle.
Yep.
Which is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Because it means
Yes.
and then the other thing is the kid's always good, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing,
You don't
right?
see anybody
They're always
crappy
very good.
because
Yeah.
they're throwing a lot. Coach
Yeah.
wants them to throw,
Yeah.
That's the thing. And there's studies that show that the single thing most correlated with pain in like the youth baseball players is the position they play, not the height they are, not how hard they throw, none of those things. It's just the fact that they're a pitcher. So then that brings up this interesting point. Great, they're good. That means they're going to be asked to throw a bunch.
Yep.
Who's put the best athlete on the field?
So they always do.
but they always have the ball.
So this week, talking to Ryan Matthews, who owns Optimum Athletes, which is a baseball performance group that we work closely with, 2 kids in the same weekend in 8th grade threw 100 pitches.
Yeah.
2 kids. Both of them played for 2 separate teams. So they played for one team on Saturday and one team on Sunday, and they pitched in both of those games. So now you can't blame the coach.
Yeah.
You can't blame the kid because every 8th grader says yes always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of have to blame the parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else can pay attention to that situation?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. And the parent impact is huge in these young, talented children.
They're the only person that could shut that down.
Yeah,
Yes, because the kid can't say no.
yeah.
And
No, you're right. And
as a parent of a 14-year-old who just had graduation from 8th grade this morning,
Nice.
it's that is really hard to do. Now my kid doesn't play baseball, and I wish that he did. It would be much better for him at the size that he's probably going to be than his basketball
He's going to
choice.
follow in your footsteps. And
But yeah, end up doing
star?
nothing. But his like it's really hard like to make now for my son, like as a basketball guy who doesn't have all the gifts, it's like I want to give as many opportunities as possible to like play and develop his game, right? Yep. But if I had a kid who's like special, who's like throwing, like say it was in baseball words, like you're throwing like in the upper 70s or 80s and you're an 8th grader, it's like what you want to do is like, okay, you've got it. Kudos to you. Let's just put this thing on ice for a little while.
Yeah.
Let's not throw all the time. Let's work on other aspects of your game because we know that when you're 15 or 16, like it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's going to be
gonna be
better
worse.
just because you're bigger and stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
worse for
like
the elbow.
don't throwing well at 14, 15 and doing well in that summer does you like no good for your
And
baseball career.
There's countless research to support this. There's more
Yeah.
studies that say if you're in the big leagues, you have more likely played in less showcases than anybody who does not make it to the big leagues.
That's a great one.
That's a great one.
a great
That says the
stat.
whole story.
Yeah.
That's
all
it.
right there.
Because it's so like baseball, especially pitching, is like, man, if you're throwing above 80, like you got a shot, right? And if you throw above 90, you got a really good shot. I mean, you just got to hone it in. You don't have to throw more.
Calm down.
Yeah, it's like you want to like preserve it to some
Develop the
degree.
rest of your body to catch up to the
develop
point.
the rest. And that's
Yeah.
what a lot of that conversation goes to. You know, I'm talking the player,
Yes.
Right.
but I'm looking at the player.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully the parents
Talking to
listen.
everyone
Yeah.
else at the same time. Like, guys,
It's really tough as a parent.
Scale
'cause, like,
back.
but it's funny like when you like as a parent who doesn't have a kid who's special, when I see one like it's clear as day, right?
Yeah.
And I almost want to go tell the parent like, hey, just be cool with that. Like you've got something special there. Like just let it be. You're already in the top 2%. You know, like you don't have to show everybody. Like just be quiet with it. Whereas like I'm trying to get my son as much exposure as possible because I mean he wouldn't be throwing hard enough to hurt himself in baseball terms. You know.
Yeah.
He can't run fast enough to hurt his hamstring in basketball, so it doesn't matter if we play every game.
Luke doesn't listen to the podcast, so you can.
You know,
Okay, for-
I can speak to it. He'll look back in 20 years and be like, "What is my dad talking about?"
yeah.
Because he thinks he's going to the NBA, so that's we're having to work through that at the moment. But I mean, I've taken him to experiences to show that's going to be very difficult. But anyway, okay. So then the other end of the spectrum, if we could,
Yep.
you want they would be like
that's great.
the slightly older player who now is like throwing like hard, and they're a little more body mature. You know, they're whatever they're at with it, but they're a little more mature. And then how do we approach that when you see these folks? It's probably a little different evaluation, different conversation.
Yeah, definitely a different conversation. I mean, so the main things I touch on is, I mean, velocity. I always figure out what pitches they throw, figure out how often they throw. And then the majority of the time they're coming from the likes of you guys, right? So if they've made it to me, it's because there's legitimate concern about what's going on with them. I mean, it comes, I mean, the evaluation is like critical, obviously. I mean, we have our evaluation for our UCL, we have our moving valgus, or our milking maneuver. We have all kinds of things to look at that. And more often than not, that's still not the problem. More often than not, it's like people aren't getting Tommy Johns or repairs, like that. They shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
It's still
It
supposed to
shouldn't
be
the first option.
No, it's still supposed to be it's a very rare surgery. It's not supposed to be a common thing. And so what I look at a lot outside of obviously the mechanic side of things is their flexors. So a lot of times their flexors get overstrained also because now their flexors are trying to overcompensate for everything else coming down the line that's not there, and their flexors are getting a little out of control. So I see a lot of flexor tendinitis, not partial tears at that point. You have to be thrown a little bit harder to get the partial tears.
Yeah.
But we're starting to see a little bit more, at least it's become a little more evident of, pronator issues, right? And other flexor issues in association or in isolation, with Tommy Johns and UCLs.
You were talking about this.
So
the other day.
I'm really glad you said that because I think kind of seeing more of this like evolution of the mechanism probably of how this is happening, right? So those kids, the mechanism of that is that layback position, right?
Yeah.
I think that we're seeing more of these high level throwers with a more like ball release mechanism. And so more like at extension. So you're seeing a lot more of these like bony issues on the backside,
impingement.
and then the flexor thing that you're talking about. And like I rack my brain to think about why this is changing. And yes, velocity, but velocity's been there. I really think the pitch design situation. So they've got this amazing technology. I'm sure you guys have seen it. And you go play golf and you hit into the TrackMan. Same thing for baseball, where every throw they make or every pitch they make, you can see the axis the ball is spinning on, how fast it's spinning, the profile of how much it moves. And so they do these like pitch design sessions where in one day, this kid might learn how to throw a splitter, and all of a sudden that weekend he's thrown in a game. Or they're throwing these like kick change things where they take a finger out of the equation. So now we're like loading a whole different part of the flexor mass. You split your fingers, you're loading a whole different part of the flexor mass. Mm-hmm. I really think that probably plays some role in this sort of changing mechanism where everything used to be all layback, and I think we're seeing a whole lot more, like you said, of this flexor, back of the elbow, more like ball release type of mechanism. And they tell you, like you ask them and they tell you that it hurts here. Yeah. And then you're like, to your point, your clinical exam comes back. Yeah, you're right. It's not your ligament. Like it's your flexor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the technology is like changing the feedback loop. So it's so much tighter now.
So it's just changing the reward.
It's like we want to put you get increase your revolutions, increase your spin rate, and if you increase your spin rate, you can get more break on the ball. So that becomes the whole.
Or how they kill spin, how they like get less spin by taking fingers out of the equation. I think is maybe another. Those are the guys that I tend to see where they've like, oh yeah, did you just learn a splitter? Yep. Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Or like these pitches where they have to hold a whole lot more supination. So like sliders are coming around it. Now you don't get to pronate, dissipate force like you normally would. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
just thoughts. I haven't seen like research there, but like it's starting to line up.
Makes sense. Yeah. It fits.
Yeah.
And then obviously where they have pain, right? Like you said, is it release? Is it follow through? Is it lay back?
Yeah.
Where are you feeling it? When are you feeling it? Is obviously going to help you fine tune your diagnosis too.
Yeah.
I think the next step with that, let's say that it does move more into like a UCL involvement. Like for me, I'm fairly adamant about this with people that come in, the throwers come in and see us, evaluate them for the elbow. And they come and say, well, I saw a doc, we ordered an x-ray, they said it's clear. I even got an MRI and they said it's clear. Mm-hmm. I think that it's important to me that someone who's been trained with a thrower and worked with elbows extensively and does actually UCL repairs, reconstructions, of course, is when they look at the MRI and give feedback, it's very, very different than someone who doesn't do them.
It's the only way. I can't tell you how many times that's been done incorrectly. It's the only way.
It's a massive thing, right? So I'm adamant about that, and I can't believe how many people I run into that. I can believe it because there's very few guys that are doing UCL reconstructions at a high level,
and not just dabbling in them.
Yes,
like doing them regularly.
Yeah, and been fellowship trained in it, and that's such. So, how do you feel about that when you see it? Is it often that you're seeing a guy where maybe he's been informed, hey, your UCL is fine, then you look at it and you look at the image, you're like,
Yeah, that happens quite a bit. Or again, you go back to the flexor issue, right?
Yeah.
Basically, your elbow is fine, nothing's wrong with you, but they're like, yeah, but I throw the ball and it kills me. What do you want me to say? I need a little further evaluation here.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you could see, because I think one of the problems is radiology reads. Right? I mean, it's an MSK radiologist who does this all the time, which you rarely get.
Yeah.
Those are very helpful.
Sure.
But if you're someone who doesn't look at them a lot, then you're kind of going off of kind of what you know, but also the report, which is from a general radiologist.
Yeah,
and they're great.
yeah.
I'm not putting them down, but it's
Sure,
definitely
They're not looking at throwers' elbows.
No, you can
there's
tell.
a level of specificity that you're looking for.
And you can tell. You can tell in the report. When I read a report, and I always look at it myself, and I always share it with the patient also. But you can tell who's an MSK radiologist and who is not by the detail they go into and the bands they talk about. The other cool thing about MRIs, and so I've learned this actually being with the A's, is they don't do arthrograms ever anymore. They have a special MRI view, fever view, where they crank them.
Yeah,
they crank them.
in that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's an
cool.
active stress view of the
cool.
UCL, and what they're really measuring is gapping, right? And which
it's
And then they've been able to show like some that are lax, like the ones that are loose, like we were talking about earlier, right?
Right. Yeah. So they see that they're lax. So you may see like the Stanford kid.
Yeah.
His UCL doesn't look pristine. It's not like torn to any like great degree, but it's starting to hypertrophy. It's starting to show changes of someone who has been throwing a lot, and he's throwing fine. So I'm less worried about him. There's another kid I just saw the other day where I'm a little more worried about, may require a fever. But yeah, it picks up this very subtle detail of a ligament that's been stretched, right? And
it exposes it, right? Like it opens it up, and you get to see a whole different view of it.
Yeah,
right?
you get to see,
That's
and then
cool.
so you can fine tune it and be like, all right, well, your ligament's definitely an issue. You're gapping up to 3 millimeters. Like that's a problem, even though it looks a little hypertrophy. We don't see it ripped off the bone or anything. But someone who throws 85, 90, 95, that's a problem.
Loose is as bad as torn.
Yeah, it's
for sure.
as bad as torn.
Yeah.
So the fever thing has been kind of eye opening, and now we're doing it in Sacramento.
Sweet.
Yeah,
So-
that's available, right?
It's available now. Yeah.
Back to the flexor thing. I've seen a few coming from Meister that where he's like repairing the flexor when he does that.
That's happening more and more.
Yeah.
I haven't ran across one where I've had to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone I've looked at, the flexors look pristine. But I also talked to Mike Freehill. He says the same thing, that he's seeing more and more where there's flexor problems and they're doing the UCL, whether repair or recon, and then you're also doing a flexor repair.
Right, doing that at the same time, right?
Right.
That's what those are. All three of those were that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's coming into play, this whole flexor problem. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of it with
Which comes back to all
pitch.
this stuff.
Yep, exactly. All the changes, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think my take-home point there for the audience and such is, if you're a baseball person with a baseball problem, which this person usually only hurts their elbow when they throw something, and other than that, they don't have any pain, make sure you get with a baseball doctor, because that's what we recommend whenever we come across these patients and these clients, is like, let's get you with a baseball doc. Because I think that, not to say anyone's doing the wrong thing, they're just not quite used to seeing the volume that you've seen, and the specificity of the read is just different. It's a specialization that I think is it's just not understood by the mass. But when you get it in the hands of a baseball guy, it's amazing the difference in diagnosis and then the recommendations.
And then another key point, I don't think I kind of said the pitch design stuff is bad, but I don't think that stuff is bad. It's actually great. It's cool
great
for the game.
Yeah.
But I think kids and everybody, all athletes, have to have time to attenuate to a new stress. Their body's got to accommodate to the new stress. And when the stress is constantly changing, I think that's where we run into some of the problems.
I mean, learning on Tuesday and throwing it on Saturday is never the right move.
It's tough.
It's never the right. I mean, no matter what you do, it's never the right move.
Yeah, that's hard to ask about.
You're gonna get hurt.
Right.
You're gonna get hurt, and you may not tear your UCL, but you're gonna inflame something.
Yeah, something's not gonna feel good.
Something's not gonna feel good. It's gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's amazing how the feedback loop is so sped up though with the technology compared to what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it used to take weeks to learn that kind of thing, or months to learn that kind of thing, but now you can get feedback so fast on every pitch. Like, you learn how to snap it off harder, or pause, to your point, and change your grip. And
then they slow-mo video up here, and then they see like exactly how the ball's coming out of your hand, and then they pull up the TrackMan and they're like, okay, your hand's doing this and the ball's doing this, you need to do this. It's crazy.
It's fine-tuned.
It's amazing.
the level
Very
of coaching is
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a rapid dive into the elbow, but it's been fun to do with you, Sean. I appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
Yeah, it's always fun doing it. Always enjoy hanging out with you guys. We'll be hanging out in about 6 weeks at the lab, and we'll go through all this again.
Yes. Indeed. Go to the lab and look at the real anatomy, break it out.
Yep.
Do all the gap testing there, and then actually do a repair would be great.
Yeah, we'll start with the elbow this time. We won't do it third last time. When I was on my last.
You're a little done. You're done.
I was done. So we're gonna do the elbow first this time, so we make sure we kind of go into the detail, focus on it,
Good.
and then we can pop the other stuff.
Good.
Sounds awesome, man. Thank you. If you guys need that elbow doc, if you need that baseball guy, Dr. Sean Robinson, how do they find you? What's your website again?
Yeah, so revolutionorthopedics.com. We're actually moving our practice up to Folsom here in about 2 months. So come find us. We're always available.
Awesome. Great guys, the man. Thanks, Evan, for joining us. Evan's our baseball specialist, runs our facility at SSC along with Optimal Athletes there, and we're seeing hundreds of baseball guys a year. We have, 40, 50 guys in the off season coming through for the pro level, and in our summer league, we have a ton of college guys coming down. So looking forward to working with you guys and continuing to communicate a little more on baseball. We're going to dive into some throwing programs and things on some of the future sessions. So Thank you guys for listening to KIMEcast.